have a question.
Yeah.
What about, I guess it's somewhat along the same lines, workforce housing? Or is that too loaded? Is that either too loaded or too obscure?
Most people would not get what workforce is. Workforce is almost a term of art, if you will, for planers, 80 to 100% of AMI type of stuff, or 80 to 125%.
Okay.
Right. So I think it's a non-specific term that I think is most people are going to scratch their heads and not.
I'm scratching my head right now.
Sorry.
Okay. You lost me too, but I don't want to say anything.
Okay. I'm glad you guys are not taking us further.
I never read stupid. I don't know something.
Well, instead of upper end, how about luxury housing?
No, because luxury to me is almost sort of the far end of the spectrum. An upper end could be anything bigger than what you've got. So the issue is, depending where somebody lives today, upper end could be a little bit higher than they are right now, could be a lot higher than they are right now, but it's a sense of direction. Same thing on lower end, is that I'm looking to downsize, shift, or discourage.
The real affordable is the same thing, as if you said affordable to person A, and they're thinking strictly of affordable, they would say, well, I can afford it, I'd love to have it.
Right.
They may be talking about an entirely different house than what
Price
this other person is. And you don't know either person, but...
And the next question, 30, is the one where we say to people, these are choices that we think they might offer, but the researchers are not going to read these. So we're going to say to people, essentially an open-ended question, what do you think your next housing choice will be? And that's where I think we'll start to say, I'd like a larger, more luxurious home. Let them tell us what they're thinking, and go from there. So page 5, the questions here really have to do with sort of business uses, and the mix of different types of business uses, and what do people think about the mix. So there's a whole lot of categories you could say are not in here, but I think the basic things that would kind of resonate with people, again, retail stores, small and large, business offices, small and we call them corporate, but again, large offices, light industry, heavy industry, technology-related firms could mean a whole bunch of different things to people, hotels, restaurants, and tourist attractions. We kind of cover the gamut here and see what people's thoughts or reactions are, and whether or not they think there's any strong, missing niches, or places we're over.
You don't want to start listing all the subcategories of restaurants? Chinese restaurants, pizza restaurants, fast food restaurants.
There aren't enough breakfast restaurants.
That's a much talked about Bristol subject. And
maybe we should
who knows what they're talking about, but they just talked about it. But that's up to them, isn't it? I mean,
in terms of small versus large retail stores, you're not making a distinction, we'll say, between a mom and pop place and a chain store.
No, but I think people in their own minds might. But they might think of a small store being something sort of intimate that, again, this small, and large could be Walmart or any other large retailer. So they'll tell us what they think.
And if someone, let's take a question such as this, if someone elaborates a little bit on what they mean, does the person getting the survey information, will they make a notation about that?
Generally not. When we get to these questions, we're really trying to force people into the 3 bears. Too much, too little, just about right. Because it starts to give us an indication that they, what do they think about sort of Bristol's economy, Bristol's business mix, and how do we read those tea leaves?
Did you see Justin's comments on that, on light industry? Justin Malley?
No,
that for downtown, maybe one of the categories.
Oh, the high tech. Yeah,
I don't even know if you use high tech.
Yeah, you'll be getting a referral.
Because when you say it that way,
you'll be getting a referral.
Oh, you woke up. Oh, okay.
It'll be a referral.
Already?
All right, yeah. There's been an application to amend the regulations.
That's good.
But going back to this for a second, and again, I know we're being somewhat facetious about But I can see, and, again, maybe this is just trying to put too fine a point on it. I look at a category like restaurants, not unlike the conversation we had, is that you look at restaurants, you may get people who say, we got more than our fair share of chain restaurants, but we don't have enough, locally owned sit-down restaurants. I mean, how much of a difference does that make in terms of this survey?
Well, the next question, question 41, is an open-ended opportunity here. Are there any other issues related to current or future development? So it's possible that since it's not far after restaurants, if it really sort of stuck in people's minds, they could bring that up. If you really wanted to ask a question about, what type of restaurants would you like, if you wanted to get that specific, we could, but I'm not sure that...
Yeah, I'm not sure that you do either. But I have the suspicion, I think this is one of those categories that everybody's going to have some kind of opinion on, and I think probably everybody sitting at the table, I think has often heard comments about the mix of business uses in town, and especially when you talk about commercial uses. And again, I don't know how much that this or any commission can do anything about that from a practical standpoint. So again, it may be kind of the so what factor. It might be interesting, but there's nothing you can really do with the information of a practical nature. On the other hand, maybe there is, I don't know. It may be that, the city's economic development director, kind of begins to target his efforts, his retail attraction efforts to certain kinds of businesses.
And the only other way I could think of to tweak this, and I'm not suggesting this, would be that you could break restaurants up into two lines, one of which is the number of restaurants, and the second part is the variety of restaurants. But
that's, yeah, again, I don't want to make this...
Yeah, I'm not sure what we got. I mean, the issue is, what do you think? Too much, too few, just about right? And if the issue comes back, there's too few, then I think it starts to beg the question.
It might answer that.
Question 41
They can
gives
answer that.
the opportunity to
Answer that question.
go in that direction.
So actually, you know what I'm going to do back on the instructions? It says researchers read and rotate. I'm going to take out and rotate. I'm going to put restaurants at the bottom. All right?
It kind of will bring them into maybe thinking of restaurants
Exactly,
last
because I
time
think
and then be able to...
normally what read and rotate means is that the list is randomized. So Paul would hear something different from you, and you'd hear something different from Alan. And I think by doing it, reading it, now we're going to pair small and large retail together. So those questions will be, and people will say, too few, just about right, and et cetera. But if they were randomized and separated, that may not be good. So I think what we can do is do it this way, and then put restaurants down at the bottom. And that's kind of a, if people want to say something, they're going to tell us right then. It'll be on their mind.
Yeah, I don't want to get fixated on just restaurants, because I think people often feel the same way about, specialty shops. I got to go out of town to buy certain things because, there's no store like that in Bristol. But you're right, as long as people have the ability, and if we think something, I can see some value to that information from a marketing standpoint, from a commercial attraction efforts.
Maybe consider it including tourist attractions, but is it worth asking about entertainment options?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Movie theaters
In that same group.
as one of the categories.
I like that one.
It's interesting, it's not...
We lobby for that.
Yeah.
Anything else on page 5?
That's a good one.
So page 6 is now we're starting to get into infrastructure issues, and that relates to community facilities, transportation, both road transportation, vehicular, pedestrian. There are some other, as you can see, more questions here, but I think they all kind of relate to some of the things that we've talked about. So if there's questions in here you don't think we need to be adding, we can certainly take them out, but it seemed to me that I thought each of these questions was supportive of some of the policies we talked about in the plan, and community feedback here could be useful for us.
Do you throw 56 in just to let people vent? That's what it seems like.
This is for you, because I remember the story you were telling about the trucks up outside your house. No, fix the road.
Well, thank you.
Alan made a comment earlier. I looked at 50 just as we were sitting here, and I think after communication systems, I'm thinking of striking everything else here. In other words, we shouldn't necessarily ask people why. Bristol should encourage improvements in wireless communication systems, maybe say such as cell phones or Wi-Fi. If we have to say
I wouldn't go.
Wi-Fi.
I wouldn't go with either one of those because you don't know what's going to happen in the next
No, but wireless,
3 years.
Wireless communication systems.
Well, if there's a new technology that pops up.
I guess Bristol should encourage improvements. What does that mean? Bristol should do what to encourage?
More towers, free Wi-Fi in the downtown, a lot of things that could happen. I was actually doing some research work today and went to a library, plugged my little iPad in to watch a video of a planning and zoning commission meeting in another town. It was the only way I was going to get a chance to see it. So had there been, I know, it's crazy, but I knew the library had Wi-Fi.
Ellen does that too.
No, I don't. But I know where to go. But I know where to go if I want to.
Let me take a look at that. I want to take out the to meet the needs of residents part, and I'll take a look at that.
Well, again, I mean, by your very example, you're not a resident, so someone could say, well, I mean, and again, it's hair splitting, but yeah, I agree that just to, there's probably no need to qualify that.
Anything else on page 6?
And these are all infrastructure-based questions, right?
They are in the sense that infrastructure includes 3 topics: transportation, roads and sidewalks. The second one is community facilities, such as City Hall, Park Field, Rec Fields, the Senior Center. We're sort of leading into a lot of that. And then the third part is really utilities: water, sewer, gas, electric, phone. But it's really kind of hard to ask questions about a lot of those because sometimes those are private companies. So we kind of group them all together and roll.
Or would you have, there's nothing that questions a building of a security system or an infrastructure, big brother, so to speak, of camera systems and security.
I wouldn't, no, I didn't ask, because I didn't think anything like that was on the city agenda, and I thought it would probably, distract people from the other things in here that are likely to be in the plan. We had not talked about that concept, so I didn't think of including that in the survey.
Could you at least have the backbone for that available?
As in my backbone being...
Well, no,
having
the fiber optic backbone built into new roads, new construction. If you're developing the downtown, having the fiber optic backbone while you're building the downtown, I would think is a pretty important part of your plan of development. We're not... It just seems to me that that's a major issue, and it's going to increase at some point where the lack of having that system.
So now you got me looking back now at question 50, and whether the question in a sense is Bristol should encourage improvements in communication systems, but then I started to try to put a clause on the end that said to what? And as soon as you start putting to what on there, you're having to explain your question to people. So I'm trying to figure out how to get your point across in as few words as possible, but also as clearly as possible. And I'm struggling with that a little bit.
Well, it's improvements in the data acquisition and control.
average Joe may not
That-
get
I was
data
just gonna
acquisition.
say
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I was just gonna say, you know.
Well, the people that I talk to every day talk
Yeah,
about
you're
that. Yeah, it was a nerve.
3 words for crying out loud.
Data acquisition and control, it's not that many words.
I think,
There's 20 syllables in it.
I'm trying to find out, I think there's a provision
We're talking
in the
about-
current plan that refers to fiber optics. I gotta see if I can find it. I remember that was added in.
Depending on what way you go, you're going to leave it fiber optic.
It's just having that backbone when you do a new development or you're
No, and you
building.
bring up a good point, because, I mean, really, with the issues that are being discussed about in the downtown, the city's perhaps participation in infrastructure funding in the downtown, whether it's a piazza or other things, the issue is creating the opportunity for higher capacity communications technology would make us different and better than other places.
Yeah,
And
you
that
can
could
do
be
some really
You
cool
didn't have-
stuff with that stuff. yeah.
Would you, whatever you put in...
technology and stuff.
It's amazing.
Whatever you put in between, you didn't have to add residents back in there again?
From the FBI.
Here's what this was in the 2000 plan, and it's probably, using terminology that's somewhat out of date. I'm sorry, it's on page 42. It's policy number 15. This is in the economic development section, actually. Encourage the installation of a citywide information infrastructure to stimulate economic and community development. So that was kind of an
Yeah.
early
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah, information or, yeah.
Yeah. Was it that terminology?
Information
maybe?
/ data infrastructure, yeah, same thing. That's, yeah. Yeah, it's just,
So whereas the term wireless communication may be too limiting.
yeah, wireless communications, everybody just thinks about their
Your cell
Wi-Fi.
phone.
their cell phones.
Okay, and
Yeah.
you're talking about
Oh, my God.
fiber optics and other things that may not, strictly speaking, be wireless in the way that people normally take.
Right, but
Now
just
think
having
about it.
a broader,
Okay.
or having more data capacity. And then if you did decide to put in things like camera systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the backbone is in place to tie into
You
it.
just want us to become Big Brother.
I like Big Brother. Big Brother's good. He's protecting me.
You really think so, huh?
Well, I do. So anyway, probably not so angry.
I'm the only one with a female voice, though. I tried to move out of the camera way, but I'm not going to be able to voice at all.
Just making a note here for myself, because I cannot put my finger on where this policy ended up in the new document, so I just want to search for it. So page 42, number 15.
Number 15 is what you're talking about?
Right, so, you know, so I think it's general agreement this should be more broadly.
Yep.
High tech.
There you go, there's...
Everybody knows that.
Everybody, high-tech infrastructure. Everybody would understand.
Because no matter what
That
type of
concept,
technology
I
it
would
is,
think.
it's going to be high tech.
I'm laughing because I didn't watch the World Series, but apparently the guy from Chevrolet who awarded the keys at the end to the most valuable player ended up going on this ramble or whatever, and he was supposed to talk about all the features of the truck, and he just lost it, didn't know what he was talking about, and he talked about the truck having technology and stuff. So apparently
That's a good explanation.
Chevy's picking up right now, they're going to market all their vehicles as having like technology and stuff, because it just kind of resonates. So I'll try to find something better than technology and stuff. Anything else on 6?
Did you purposely not ask any questions here or anywhere else about public safety?
As in police fire? The challenge with, that's a great question, Paul, because the challenge on a POCD, a lot of these questions relate to physical elements that the city can control. We know there's an issue, if you will, with the space over at the police department and the conflict with the court, and the fire department's got some issues there as well. A lot of those are sort of beyond the capability of the citizens to really have an opinion on or influence, so I stayed away from those. into whether or not they thought they were getting adequate police or fire services is a question that we could add, and I didn't. So certainly a question to...
Well, you asked the question on 57, any other services or facilities?
The one of public safety, in other words, we may have danced around issues here. Paul's bringing us back to sort of center. If I did feel that there was an issue related to either police or fire response, and we haven't asked that question. It could be important and central to people's quality of life or sense of quality of life in the city. Is that too sensitive a question to ask, or should we just go ahead and ask it?
I think,
Well, because when you originally asked about the quality of life, I would think that would be a piece of a lot of people would have in mind. It makes a difference.
Did you ever thought of that?
no, I think that's probably, I think if the question is worded properly, you're really talking about, the adequacy of the police service, the adequacy of the fire service.
In regards like a yes and no question, do you feel we have an adequate fire department? Do you feel we have an adequate...
I think the question is agree, disagree, or
Yeah.
strongly.
Yeah.
So I think we would phrase both as positive statements and see if people agree or disagree.
Right.
So with 57 worded the way it is, it'd be interesting to see what answers he gets back, because you're asking for others.
Right.
And how many other are there?
Well, not to go too much farther afield, but what about schools? Or does that start, or is that...
I was thinking that
big
too,
issue.
but
Yeah,
then I was like,
or is that,
no,
or does that start to
really-
get, again, is that not necessarily too far afield, but, do you open up a whole other section of questions that,
Probably. Yeah, that really, you go back to quality of life.
Quality of life,
There's
yeah.
three big chunks here that we
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, how do you feel about Memorial Boulevard School?
So the other thing is, I think if we say, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? The city's police services are adequate. I feel I can answer that question. The city's fire services are adequate. I think I can answer that question. It seems to me when we ask the question about education, though, the word adequate doesn't seem quite right there.
Right.
So,
Going back to what you can control and what you can, I guess, maybe ask about the school facilities, but your child's education.
yeah, that's just too,
That would be way...
that's probably just
and
too broad.
That's also beyond the scope of the plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. So, yeah, it may be, if you're going to put in any kind of question at all about schools, it may be about the physical facilities.
Couldn't you ask the school question about, do you feel that it's, and then give them great, okay.
want to grade them?
Sucks.
Would you give
I
the
don't-
city school system an
A,
A?
B, C, D.
Yeah, there you go, that's even better, it's even better.
Pass or fail.
Warning slip. No, you know what, let me think about that. I think the question, what grade would you give the city school system?
There you go.
We'll know later on from the demographics whether or not they have kids in the school system.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In our policies on the previous one, we had a few comments in there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about the
No,
delivery of the education. It
Oh,
was,
program, yeah.
Yeah.
One facility. Provide a range of educational, well, of course we got recreation on there because the section is on all of the
Right.
whole facility. But it says facilities, consistent with population to be served, and so forth.
So it seems to me that we've added some questions here that I think I'm probably going to have to negotiate with the survey people. I may have to tweak some surveys, some questions out. I may be able to find some in this section here It seems to me that if I had to pick up some other questions, I might, I guess I need to ask this question. It's possible what is currently shown in here now is 23 to 28. If I had to give up questions, what if we lost all of those? These are the questions about whether we have too many, too few, or just about right of the following types of housing. I'm looking for an area where I can give up a question.
Well, I think if you look, I mean, not knowing how many questions you have, I'm back on page 6. You know, I'm looking at, you know, questions 43 and 44. Traffic congestion is a problem on the major roads. I don't think there's going to be anybody who's going to say, oh, no, that's not a problem.
That's right.
It's like, I think it's going to reinforce what I think everybody knows, both intuitively and empirically.
Yeah.
And even question 44, city should try to limit the number of driveways. I mean, I think notwithstanding what you might get from a survey, I mean, I think that's a policy that both planning and zoning have adopted, and recognizing that there's value to it. So I'm not sure what the public can contribute to that we don't already have a sense of.
And I could probably merge 45 and 46.
I think what Alan just said about those goes for question 12 as well. Protect steep slopes and ridge lines that somebody's going to put in the plan anyway, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there are some questions. Let me see how. Let me see what I can do in terms of getting those new community facility questions in and the one about the school, because I think those could be useful here. Let me see what we can do.
So we're looking at also delete 12.
Well, yeah.
Possibility.
Possibly.
Yeah, I've got 12.
42 and 43.
Seems like that one came up when there was development on South Mountain.
Right. Yeah, it seems to me that in some cases you want the survey to perhaps you try and find out if what the commission's past thinking and present thinking about a particular issue is, whether that in fact is reinforced by, it's reflective of public attitudes, as opposed to something where, again, I go back to the traffic congestion one. I suspect pretty much everybody's going to tell you there's traffic congestion. I don't know that you need the public to reinforce that, and I think the commission has generally accepted that that's an issue.
Yep.
And what's more important is, how do you address the issue?
So let me do this. I think if it's all right with the commission, let me talk to the survey firm tomorrow morning, because I'm going to make these edits, talk to them, get their sense. If there's any question deletions that need to go on, I'll coordinate with Alan, because he's been part of these discussions in terms of which questions are likely to get, and we'll come to a conclusion. We'll try to minimize, if you will, extraneous information. We just don't need to be chasing things you already know.
That's fine.
Okay. Anything else on 6? How about page 7? So 58 is the last material question right now, and then everything else after that is sort of the basic demographic information that we generally try to collect as part of every survey. And again, this is to figure out whether or not there's an age-related issue or a geographic-related issue, or even a gender-related issue in terms of people's responses to questions. I mean, sometimes homeowners are more passionate about open space than renters, and you can start to figure some of this stuff out. Is there anything in here that's...
You left out income and education?
Income is generally something that you try to stay away from if you can. It is a question which can cause people to say, you know what, you just asked a question that's a bridge too far.
Right.
I'm terminating.
They get the last one.
No, it's,
But
well,
anyway, yes, no, I'm fine. Just say. That's fine. I was just, when you're collecting demographics, I would think that...
it's the question that people are most offended by.
Yep.
And as education second?
Are you one of the heads of your
Good. You want to go for three for three?
Well, I'm just asking, because I originally said there's nothing about education or... Yeah, so you don't put that in either.
Have not, I mean, I've not generally found a strong response differentiation. I mean, people within the community have an opinion, if you will, about these sorts of issues.
Okay.
John, you were talking about 59?
Heads of households?
Yeah.
No, I got 3 heads on my house.
Well, some people think they're head of household and they're not, but they say they
No,
are.
the issue ends up being is that you can get a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old who's still living at home. So they're answering the survey, they're eligible, but they're not a head of
Oh, you
household.
want, just answer the phone, okay.
Okay.
So, are you looking for the head of the household?
No.
You would have asked it first.
No.
No, they
Yes,
just
that
want
would have been one of the first, if we were.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first survey draft I did, I shared with the survey firm and said, okay, am I on the right track here in terms of number of questions and everything else? And they wanted to have the question about head of household, and I got back to them and said, no, I don't want to ask that question. If there are, because I think Bristol it has a number of young people here, our proportion is higher than a lot of other communities. And so I want to understand from younger people who are not head of households, what are the issues that are of concern to them.
Right.
How are you going to make correlations to 60 and 61? What's the purpose of those questions?
This is a tough one, because the issue ends up being, I'd like to make sure that we're getting good geographic representation from all parts of the community.
Okay.
So the question in a sense was, I thought about asking people, you know, which neighborhood in Bristol do you live in? But not all the neighborhoods have names. So the question I ended up with was being, okay, and some people don't even get north and south.
Right.
So I was trying to basically, I've got my little diagram here, I've broken Bristol up into sort of 5 neighborhoods, north of 6, and east and west of 69. And then south of 6, I have west of 69, between 69 and 229, and then east of 229. I got targets for each of those neighborhoods.
Okay.
Based on 400 surveys, how many people in each neighborhood.
All right, so this is just to help you, that you don't get everyone from north of 6
From federal help,
and...
everybody, I mean, again,
Okay, got it.
so
You got
it's,
Forestville in here somewhere?
no, because the problem ends up being, what are the boundaries of Forestville? They're not really
Well,
well
I mean,
defined.
even under, could you have, doing it the same way here? If you do it the same way you do it here,
The challenge I had, John, was
you go to Farmington and Plainville, well, you might get part of
so the problem was, my first question is, are you north or south of 6? If you're north of 6, then the question is, are you closer, relative to Route 69, are you closer to Plymouth or to Farmington? So now I've divided the quadrants. South of town is different though,
Mhm.
because what we get is, there's really sort of 3 neighborhoods. West of 69, closer to Plymouth and Wolcott, you get between 69 and 229, and then east of 229. And it turns out the biggest neighborhood in town is south of 6, east of 229. It's Forestville.
Okay.
So 119 of the surveys out of 400 should be coming from that quadrant. So northwest quadrant, 49. Northeast quadrant, 90. Southwest quadrant, 63. South central, 82. And southeast is 119. So that's based on what the census showed in terms of the number of residents in those areas. So that's my sort of ballpark range, and I'm just trying to figure out how to ask the question, where do you live? I could take these questions out. I mean, we're likely...
I like the description, but I find those that have names in Connecticut, you better not leave them out of anything.
No, I would agree. The challenge was, is that if Bristol was broken down into...
More distinct.
Plymouthville, Forestville, you know, then I could do it. But
I know.
Okay.
If you've got targets in your assigned calls for the neighborhoods, you same method, you're going to go until you get so many responses?
yeah, so what happens is after they've got about 300 surveys complete, they tabulate the numbers and see where their targets are, and whether or not they're tracking, they're on in proportion, in which case the randomness is working out fine, we don't have to do anything. But if we get down to the end, and it turns out they need a 24-year-old from the northwest quadrant, they will continue to call numbers until they fill that void. So they're not hard numbers, So what happens right now is we go through the survey, they're in here is what, questions like 62 and 63 or whatever the numbers are on there. As we get down to the end, those two questions move up to the front, and as soon as we make contact with people, is are you a resident of Bristol, yes or no? Are you 20 years of age, yes or no? Are you between the age of 35 and 39? Please? Have you lived in the Northwest corner? Please? And the issue is if you get no, you say, well, thank you very much, and then you move on.
Move on to the next one.
So,
That's just looking
but
specific
what we
for
have is a
next
fairly broad range on these survey responses here, so we're not requiring exactly 31.
I have a
It's got to be
smile.
somewhere between 20 and 40. We can't have...
Where you live in Dalton?
I guess my question is
You're in the 85
based on the distribution that your ideal
That's right.
distribution,
Yep.
is the caller going to know what quadrant the person he's calling
The
is?
questions are designed to ask people...
So then if they already know that and track it, why do you need a separate question in here?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. The phone numbers that they get are generated randomly, so they don't actually know where this person lives. They know that they're in Bristol, but they don't know exactly where the number is from. So it could be a Bristol number, but they don't know which quadrant until they've asked the person. In particular with cell phones, because the cell phones go to a billing address.
Okay, so I was just confused. I thought you had said that in essence they've already targeted
No.
X number in this quadrant, X number in here.
Based on the 2010
That's how many
census
they want.
and the blocks, the census
But they
tracts.
don't have the numbers that go with those.
They know that they're
The
Bristol
agents.
numbers, they know the
The
billing addresses in
Right.
Bristol, but they haven't geo-referenced the phone numbers to these neighborhoods,
Right.
so they'll just keep calling people, and then one of the questions is, where in fact do you live?
Gary made an interesting comment on 62. You know, which of the categories best applies to you, and if they say don't know, check off 85 or over.
A little forgetful memory.
That was good, Gary.
Anything else on the phone survey? Is there any questions you think we should be asking we haven't talked about? Anything else? Well, I'm pretty excited for this. The survey
This is a great
consultants will be, I've got them scheduled in for a meeting in December, so that I imagine two things will happen that night. The first thing we'll do is probably have the survey report, which will be issued to you, again, roughly a week in advance of the meeting. And they'll be in to present their findings and answer questions based on what they've learned as part of this. And then the remainder of the meeting in December would be talking about your initial reactions to the draft plan.
When do you think, when did you say we're going to...
Friday.
Day after tomorrow?
Yeah.
Time to get a release out?
Press release is written.
I mean, worst case, they start next Monday.
I complain.
That's not going to make a difference.
Now, I think the purpose for trying to get the...
I was laughing. I said, oh my God, I can't believe we put that in there.
Yeah, I think...
You want to do that?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that you want, ideally, you'd like the survey completed before it gets to Thanksgiving, obviously.
No, it's going to happen.
I
need to get it wrapped
Right.
by about next Friday, to be able
Right.
to integrate the results into what... If they wrap with their last questions by Friday, they'll get the results to me on Monday, and then I can integrate into what I'm doing on the...
Yeah, I mean, I
plan
think
writing.
if we can, let me put it this way, if we can, I can have the press release go out tomorrow, I can have a press release go out Friday, but I'd say the latest we start Monday, and that's not a problem. That's doable. At least it's doable at our end. If it's doable at your end.
Let me ask them.
Okay.
I have said to them, I wanted to go into the field on Friday, so
Mhm.
they may have already staffed, they may hire,
Okay.
told, they use part-time people, the people
Right.
may already be slotted in, everybody may be
Okay.
ready to rock and roll. So
Okay.
my thought, Paul, was is the press release gets issued tomorrow morning. Alan will get the press release posted or some notification on the city website so people can go and check it and find out.
Yeah, at the very least, it'll be on the city website. Obviously, once we release it, it'll go to the Bristol Press and the Bristol Observer and whoever else has been getting our press releases. And, then we're at their mercy as to whether they decide to run it or not. But at the very least, we'll have it up on the website. That's easy.
So I don't think we need a formal vote, but everybody's comfortable with the survey and
Yes,
we're rock and roll?
We're going to call it supper time, are we?
Sometimes they do. I mean, the bottom line is they generally, they will call throughout the day, but the majority of calls they do are in the evening hours, because that's the time most people are home. But the issue is, if people don't answer, and I understand they will not, they're going to leave a message and say, this is who we are, you were randomly selected, so we were going to try to reach your household at another time, and they'll try again, and hopefully people, even if they're having dinner, will say, look, I'm having dinner, can you call me back in 20 minutes? They'll do that. So, they're good at this.
It's their job, that's what they do, right?
And they do, that's why I've been using them for 15 or 20 years, so.
Good.